Welcome to the One in the Many. My name is Arshak Ben-Lian. My purpose with the One in the Many podcast is to explore the process of integration as developmentally formative and therapeutically corrective factor in human psychology. The One in the Many is the study of how conscious life differentiates identity, integrates relation, regulates itself under constraint, and sustains direction through time. Subscribe to the One in the Many podcast and connect with me by writing to abenlian@oneinthemany.net. Human development begins with a simple act that is so commonplace we rarely notice its significance. We attend. Before we learn, before we understand, before we create, before we lead, we attend. Attention is the doorway through which reality enters consciousness. It is the selective focusing of awareness upon some aspect of existence, and through that focus, the world gradually reveals its structure. What initially appears as a collection of disconnected impressions becomes differentiated into meaningful relationships. Attention is therefore not merely the beginning of knowledge, it is the beginning of competence. When a child first encounters the world, attention is diffuse. Everything is novel, yet little is understood. Over time, curiosity directs attention toward particular objects, activities, and relationships. Through repeated engagement, distinctions emerge. The child learns that sounds form words, that movements produce effects, that people possess intentions, and that actions carry consequences. What appears from the outside as learning is, at a deeper level, the progressive refinement of attention. Consciousness becomes increasingly capable of distinguishing the relevant from the irrelevant, the essential from the accidental, and the meaningful from the trivial. The development of civilization follows the same pattern. Every great advance in human history begins with an individual attending more deeply to reality than those around him. Such individuals do not initially seek influence or leadership. Their first distinguishing characteristic is attentiveness. They become absorbed by a question, a problem, a pattern, or a possibility that others overlook. Their attention remains fixed where others become distracted. Through that sustained engagement, they discover relationships that were always present but not yet consciously recognized. Socrates provides one of history's most striking examples. What distinguished him was not his possession of answers, but his devotion to questions. He attended to assumptions. While others accepted prevailing opinions as self-evident, Socrates directed his attention toward the foundations beneath those opinions. He noticed contradictions hidden within ordinary beliefs and sought to expose them through dialogue. His genius did not lie in proclaiming doctrines, but in maintaining an extraordinary attentiveness to the process of thinking. He observed that many people claimed knowledge where only habit, convention, or imitation existed. By attending to the structure of reasoning, he revealed distinctions others had overlooked. The influence of Socrates emerged directly from these attentiveness. Those who encountered him found their own assumptions challenged and reorganized. His conversations did not merely transfer information, they transformed the way people thought. He taught others how to attend to their own minds. His influence arose because his integrations were reconstructed within the consciousness of his students. The most notable of those students was Aristotle's teacher, Plato, through whom the Socratic method would echo across millennia. Socrates held no office, commanded no army, and governed no institution. Yet his influence remains one of the most enduring in human history. His leadership emerged not from authority, but from the transformative power of his attentiveness. Aristotle inherited this attentional discipline and expanded dramatically. If Socrates attended primarily to the structure of thought, Aristotle attended to reality in its widest possible scope. He observed plants, animals, governments, ethics, logic, rhetoric, poetry, and metaphysics. His attentiveness was remarkable not merely for its breadth, but for its integrative power. Aristotle sought relationships between domains that others treated as separate. He understood that knowledge advances not only through differentiation, but through the integration of differentiated observations into coherent explanatory systems. Because Aristotle's integrations were so comprehensive, his influence extended beyond individual conversations and into entire disciplines. He provided intellectual frameworks that shaped scientific inquiry, political theory, ethics, and education for centuries. Students traveled great distances to learn from him because they recognized a superior capacity to perceive and organize reality. Leadership emerged naturally from that recognition. Aristotle did not become influential because people followed him. People followed him because his attentiveness generated value. His leadership was the social acknowledgement of an extraordinary integrative capacity. The same developmental pattern appears again in the life of Isaac Newton. Unlike Socrates, whose attention focused on reasoning, or Aristotle, whose attention ranged across nature and culture, Newton directed his attention toward the mathematical order underlying physical reality. He became captivated by questions that others either ignored or considered unanswerable. Why do planets move as they do? Why does an apple fall toward the earth? Could the same principle explain both phenomena? These questions required an unusual degree of attentiveness because the relationships involved were not directly visible. Newton had to maintain concentration across observations separated by immense differences in scale. He integrated terrestrial and celestial phenomena into a single explanatory framework. In doing so, he revealed a level of order previously hidden from human understanding. His famous observation that he stood on the shoulders of giants reflects the humility characteristic of genuine attentiveness. The deeper he saw into reality, the more he appreciated the contributions of those who had come before him. Newton's influence transformed the scientific world because his integrations enabled others to see reality differently. His work provided a conceptual structure through which countless future discoveries became possible. Scientists followed his methods not because he possessed authority over them, but because his understanding generated explanatory power. Once again, influence emerged through the transmission of integration, and leadership emerged through the recognition of that influence. Maria Montessori offers a particularly illuminating example because her attentiveness was directed toward human development itself. While many educators of her time focused primarily on instruction, Montessori focused on observation. She attended carefully to children. She watched how they interacted with their environment, how they learned, how they concentrated, and how they developed independence. What she discovered was not imposed upon children, but revealed by them through her sustained attentiveness. Montessori's influence arose because her observations generated a radically different understanding of education. She demonstrated that children possess intrinsic developmental drives that flourish when properly supported. Teachers around the world began reconstructing her insights within their own practice. Her leadership emerged because she expanded humanity's understanding of childhood. Millions of children whom she would never meet benefited from integrations she first discovered through attentive observation. These 4 lives reveal a common pattern that extends far beyond their particular achievements. In each case, the process begins with attention. Socrates attends to thought. Aristotle attends to reality structure. Newton attends to physical order. Montessori attends to human development. Through sustained attention, each develops integrations unavailable to those around them. Those integrations generate influence because they reorganize the understanding of others. Leadership then emerges as the social recognition of that influence. The relationship among attention, influence, and leadership is therefore not accidental but developmental. Attention is the source. Influence is the transmission. Leadership is the recognition. Without attention, there can be no meaningful integration. Without integration, there can be no genuine influence. Without influence, there can be no legitimate leadership. What society often identifies as leadership is merely the visible culmination of a much deeper process occurring within consciousness. From the perspective of the one in the many, this developmental arc represents one of the fundamental mechanisms of human flourishing. Every advance in knowledge, culture, science, education, and civilization begins when an individual attends more deeply than others to some aspect of reality. Through that attentiveness, he generates integrations. Through communication and example, those integrations become transmissible. Through their transmission, influence emerges. Through the recognition of their value, leadership arises. The cycle then repeats as others direct their own attention toward new horizons of understanding. The greatest leaders in history were therefore not primarily seekers of followers. They were seekers of reality. Their leadership emerged because their attentiveness generated integrations that expanded the capacities for others. Their enduring legacy is not the number of people who follow them, but the number of minds they taught to see. In this sense, attention, influence, and leadership are not separate phenomena, but successive stages in the unfolding of human consciousness. This is the one in the many. The principle of life is the process of integration from a single cell to an ideal human being. The story of life unfolds through integration, from a single percept to a library of knowledge. Through virtue, reason, honesty, independence, selfishness, productivity, you set your values, purpose, to achieve self-esteem and happiness. Through time and energy, from induction to integration to reduction, the smallest particle unifies matter, and the highest purpose unifies your life. You, the one in the many, matter. May you integrate your life with value-driven days.